The first reports were so fragmented, so wildly inconsistent, that the United Terran Authority dismissed them as sensor malfunctions. Patrol beacons along the Euphrates Drift were designed to withstand solar storms, rogue asteroids, and even the occasional pirate sabotage. But nothing in the memory banks of those systems could explain what the beacons recorded: sudden pockets of space where light slowed, magnetic fields twisted, and matter shuddered as though inhaled by an invisible mouth. Within days, the transmissions stopped entirely. The Authority deployed a single reconnaissance frigate, the UTS Marlin, to investigate. The ship never returned. It wasn't until a merchant convoy limped back to the outer colonies, hulls warped like softened wax, crews whispering about shadows that moved without time, that the Authority finally sounded an alert. By then it was too late. The Vesh'tarri had arrived. No one knew their origin. No intercepted transmission revealed their culture, their motives, or even their biology. They existed as shifting silhouettes, as if formed from cooled smoke yet capable of tearing starships apart with thin ribbons of gravity that snaked from their bodies. They consumed energy not like parasites, but like an elemental force, an avalanche eating everything in its path. The Vesh'tarri didn't conquer. They swallowed. World after world fell in silence. Only a handful of civilian shuttles escaped the fall of New Carthage, their cameras capturing the planet's surface corrugating like a rippling cloth as the alien shadows descended. Entire continents folded inward, oceans lifted like coils of silk. Then the planet simply collapsed, compressed into a trembling dark sphere no larger than a mountain. Defeat seemed mathematically certain, but humanity, cornered, bloodied, nearly extinguished, never accepted anything as inevitable. Not when the fierce soldiers were activated. The beginning, Project Fierce. Long before the Vesh'tarri ever appeared, the Authority authorized a classified experimental program named FERC, Field Intensive Integrated Enhanced Response Combat Echelon. It was humanity's attempt to prepare for threats it could not imagine. In deep underground complexes on Titan, Earth's brightest scientists engineered 50 elite soldiers, men and women who bonded with adaptive nanoframes, neural amplifiers, and tactical AI symbiotes. They were not mindless super soldiers, they were fully conscious, fully human, but enhanced to operate where normal soldiers failed. Their bodies were stronger, their reflexes were faster, their senses were widened to spectrums humans had never perceived. And then the project was sealed away, archived as unnecessary, until the Vesh'tarri arrived. When Commander Jalen Rourke awakened inside his stasis pod, he expected to hear a medical officer, or perhaps Director Hesse briefing him. Instead, the air was filled with a distant low hum, one he instinctively recognized as orbital bombardment. The pod hatch hissed open. Emergency lighting flickered across the awakening chamber. Other pods opened one after another, their occupants stepping out with the fluid certainty of soldiers who never forgot their training, not even in sleep. Colonel Kira Melis, the highest ranking of them, gathered the group quickly. "We've lost 5 colonies," she said, her voice steady but hard. "Earth could be next." Jalen felt the nanoframe within him stir. Awakening fully as sensors along his spine synced with his mind. "What are we facing?" he asked. Kira's jaw tightened. "We don't know. Nothing we've deployed has even slowed them." A quiet fell across the chamber. Then she said the words none of them expected to hear again. "Fierce soldiers, humanity needs us. The middle, the war without form." The Fierce unit did not deploy from a spaceport or carrier. They were launched from an underground mass driver that hurled them in drop capsules directly toward the embattled frontier. Their destination, the Artemis Line, the last fortified region between the Vesh'tarri and Earth. As Jalen's capsule screamed through space, his AI symbiote, Argus, projected tactical overlays across his vision. Warning, gravitational anomalies detected. Enemy signatures ahead, multiple. Recommend immediate evasive trajectory adjustments. Jalen gritted his teeth. Override to manual. He grabbed the capsule's controls and dodged a ribbon of dark gravitational matter that sliced across the void like a whip. A nearby cruiser wasn't as lucky. The ribbon wrapped around it, tightened, and the ship crumpled into a metallic spiral before vanishing in a flicker of light. Jalen's knuckles whitened. "This ends today." The drop capsule slammed into the shield deck of the defense station Aegis 12. As the fierce soldiers emerged, alarms blared, and the crew stared at them with a mix of awe and desperation. A young lieutenant stepped forward. "Are you Project Fierce?" Kira answered. "Where's your commanding officer?" The lieutenant swallowed. "Killed an hour ago." The Vesh'tarri breached the outer hull. 3 decks lost. Kira didn't hesitate. "Show us." Inside Aegis 12, the Vesh'tarri presence distorted reality. Floors rippled. Walls pulsed like breathing metal. Gravity shifted in sickening waves throughout the corridors. The shadows themselves moved without walking. They flowed, streams of dark plasma with jagged limbs that formed and unformed unpredictably. Their gravitational tendrils lashed out, pulling matter into their bodies, absorbing energy, growing larger and more chaotic. But the fierce soldiers were built for chaos. Jalen rushed forward first, nanoframe plates folding across his limbs like a liquid exosuit. He leapt over a collapsing bulkhead, landing directly beside a Vesh'tarri entity. He jabbed his gauntlet into its core and discharged a pulse of inverted energy, technology far outside standard human weaponry. The creature recoiled, its form flickering like disrupted smoke. Argus flashed a confirmation. Enemy destabilized. Not eliminated. Continue pressure. Kira and the others moved with synchronized precision, their neural implants linking them in a combat net that allowed shared perception. To them, the battlefield was a dance. Fluid, instinctive, perfectly coordinated. Their enhanced bodies could withstand gravitational distortion. Their AI symbiotes predicted enemy movements millisecond by millisecond. The station crew watched in stunned amazement as the fierce unit drove the Vesh'tarri back, step by step, deck by deck. For the first time since the Vesh'tarri arrived, humanity wasn't being swallowed. Humanity was fighting back. The turning point, the core of darkness. After reclaiming Aegis 12, the fierce soldiers learned the nature of the enemy, or rather what little could be understood. The Vesh'tarri were not individual beings, they were fragments of a much larger consciousness hiding deep in the rifts of space, an intelligence that processed stars the way humans processed food. They did not invade to conquer resources. They arrived because something human-made had caught their attention, the pulse of subspace technology that Greater Earth had developed in the last century. To the Vesh'tarri, subspace drives were not travel mechanisms. They were signals, unintentional invitations. Humanity had unknowingly called the monsters to its doorstep. Only one plan had any chance of success: destroy the central Vesh'tarri anchor, a massive distortion at the edge of the drift from which their forces poured. It was suicide. Every predictive model said so. But the fierce soldiers didn't care. If defeat was inevitable, then humanity deserved the right to fight for that last, impossible chance. The final assault. Into the anchor, the fierce unit departed Aegis 12 aboard a single stealth destroyer retrofitted with experimental shielding. Escort ships attempted to accompany them, but gravitational anomalies shredded them long before reaching the anchor. By the time the destroyer reached the edge of the distortion, only the fierce team remained alive. Jalen stood at the observation window. Across from him, the anchor churned like a cosmic hurricane, rings of twisted light spinning around a black center, pulses of dark energy beating like a massive heart. Argus whispered inside his mind, "This phenomenon exceeds all known physics. Approach not recommended." "Noted," Jalen muttered. "Proceed anyway." Kira gathered the team on the deck. "This is it. Our objective is simple: deliver the destabilization charge directly into the anchor's core. If we succeed, we shut down the Vesh'tarri invasion. If we fail, Earth falls within days." Nobody flinched. Fierce soldiers did not fear impossible odds, they were born from them. The destroyer dove into the anchor. Reality shattered around them. Colors became sounds. Sounds became pressure, and gravity existed only in flickers. The ship's hull groaned, bending as though it were clay. But the adaptive nanobot armor within the fierce soldiers stabilized their bodies, preserving their senses. Argus and the other symbiotes linked together, acting as a single meta-AI to maintain navigation. Then, in a blinding flash, the ship emerged into a hollow spherical void. At its center floated something massive, an organism, a machine, a deity. It was impossible to categorize. Its surface rippled like liquid metal, but it pulsed with internal stars, each flickering and dying in microseconds. Tendrils of gravitational matter extended outward like the roots of a cosmic tree. The anchor, the source, the heart of the Vesh'tarri. Immediately, hundreds of shadow forms shot toward the ship. Kira shouted, "Deploy!" The fierce soldiers ejected from the destroyer, their suits forming individual energy shields. They flew through the void as the ship detonated behind them, a distraction that bought them precious seconds. Jalen and Kira led the charge toward the anchor's surface while the others fanned out, cutting through waves of Vesh'tarri with coordinated bursts of inverted entropy, energy that confused the enemy's structure. But the anchor fought back. Tendrils lashed out, warping time around them. One soldier, Tessa Vallon, gasped as her form stretched into a ribbon, then snapped back violently. She didn't scream. She simply pressed forward, firing until her existence flickered out entirely. 30 soldiers fell in the first minute, but the remaining 20 formed a spearhead, around Kira and Jalen. As they reached the anchor's core, Argus warned, "Structural integrity failing. You cannot survive the charge detonation." Jalen responded calmly, "I know." Kira placed a hand on his arm. Their eyes met, unspoken understanding, unspoken gratitude. "For Earth," she said. "For Earth," he echoed. They planted the destabilization device into the shimmering surface. Immediately, the anchor pulsed violently, trying to reject it. Argus counted down. 10 seconds. 9, 8. Vesh'tarri's shadows converged on them. The remaining soldiers locked arms, forming a living barricade. Each fought with the fury of humanity's last hope. Their armor cracked, their bodies bled, but they refused to fall back. 3, 2, 1. The universe exploded. The end. The aftermath. When Jalen awoke, he expected darkness. Instead, he found himself floating in a rescue cradle aboard a medical frigate. Pain radiated through every fiber of his body. His armor had fused with his skin in places, but he was alive. Kira lay in the cradle beside him, eyes barely open but smiling faintly. "You did it," she whispered. Jalen's voice was hoarse. "We did it." Outside the window, the stars looked normal again. The distortion fields had vanished. The Vesh'tarri shadows were gone. The anchor itself had collapsed into a harmless wave of dispersed particles. Humanity had survived. Weeks later, Jalen and Kira stood on the surface of Earth, overlooking a memorial erected for the 38 fierce soldiers who never returned. Crowds lined the horizon. Billions watched the broadcast. The survivors of Project Fierce were hailed as legends, saviors of the human race. But Jalen knew the truth. They had only bought time. Humanity would rebuild, learn, strengthen, become wiser, because someday, somewhere, something even darker might emerge from the hidden corners of the cosmos. But when it did, humanity would be ready. They would fight again, and they would never accept defeat as inevitable. Not anymore.